All right, here we go. Bob Lazar is the ex-government scientist who, in 1989, came forward with the fact that he had been part of a team of scientists who back-engineered extraterrestrial disks, flying saucers, in other words, at a base known as S4, some 15 miles south of the infamous Area 51 at Groom Lake. Bob's story is the main reason behind the state of Nevada changing the name of Nevada State Highway 375, the highway to Area 51 or S4, to its new name, the Extraterrestrial Highway. Indeed. Bob currently runs a company that manufactures and repairs alpha radiation detectors. He also creates CGI computer-generated graphics and simulations for technical and legal demonstration videos, for which he uses his mainframe supercomputer, which, by the way, is the second fastest computer in the state of Nevada, second only to the one at Nellis Air Force Base. Bob also has a small photo processing lab in his home. In his spare time, Bob does pyrotechnical and rocket research and throws Desert Blast, his annual fireworks blowout, at the Nevada desert. And if memory serves, he also fools around with alternative fuels for cars. He comes this morning with Gene Huff, Bob's longtime friend and business partner, who is the writer and co-producer of the Lazar tape. Gene is a real estate appraiser and screenwriter. His screenplay S4, the Bob Lazar story, has recently been optioned and was chosen over 3 other screenplays on the Lazar story, written by writers Jim Cresson, I guess that's right, Cresson or Cresson, who wrote The Morning After with Jeff Bridges and Jane Fonda, Roy Carlson, who wrote China Moon with Ed Harris and Madeline Stowe, and David Rabe, I guess it would be, Rabe, who wrote Casualties of War with Sean Penn and Michael J. Fox, and co-wrote The Firm with Tom Cruise and Gene Hackman. So, this is quite a coup, obviously, for an entry-level screenwriter. But then again, Gene has had the inside track. Good morning, Bob. Are you there?
I'm here.
And Gene, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Bob, is it really true? It had to have been 4, maybe 5 years ago that I interviewed you in concert with John Lear.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember that. My friends tell me I have about the worst memory that can be had, but from what I recall, years ago I remember John Lear apparently booking me on your show and never telling me about it.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I don't.
And then
I really don't remember ever doing the show.
No, there was a time, maybe even a couple of years before that, when we had you on for a short while.
Art, I think he called in.
That was it. That was
he
it.
called in when Lear was on the show.
That's what it
did
was.
it?
Yes, yes.
Well,
yes.
I don't even remember that, but I'll take everyone's word for it.
All right. Well, in fact, we now have such a gigantic audience out there that hardly anybody knows who you are, Bob, except for, of course, you know, ufologists and so forth, who would be very familiar with your story. So the great majority of the audience, 99%, have no idea who Bob Lazar is. Now, I guess that means we have to begin at the beginning with regard to how you... Well, first of all, Bob, you're a physicist, correct?
Mm-hmm. Or was at the time.
Was at the time, yeah. How did you become involved with, or begin to get involved with, whatever it is out there at Area 51, or is specifically S4?
Well, let me try and give you the Reader's Digest version. Some years ago, I was working at Los Alamos National Labs in New Mexico. One particular day, I was going down to the lecture hall to hear Edward Teller speak, who, as most people know, is the father of the hydrogen bomb.
Yes.
I got down there a little early because I wanted to get in, assuming there was going to be a crowd of people, and actually, to my surprise, there was hardly anyone there. Coincidentally, that day, the local newspaper in town, the Monitor, had printed a front-page article on me. And right outside the lecture hall was Dr. Teller reading the front page of the paper. So I thought it was a perfect opportunity to introduce myself and just say hi.
Absolutely.
It was just a casual meeting, and the only reason I bring it up is years later I had moved out of Los Alamos after I quit working for the lab. I opened up my own business that did some contract work for the lab, and also started a one-hour photo shop for my wife that she ran there. We later moved out of Los Alamos to Las Vegas, and again, some time later, I decided, I had missed working in the scientific community, so I decided to get back in and send out resumes. I sent them out really all over the place to the places where I'd essentially like to live, Livermore. I really don't remember where else, but one of the other resumes I sent was to Dr. Teller's attention, and I had referenced our meeting back then. A short time later, I got a call from him, and he did remember me, to my surprise, and said we might have a position you're interested in. I said, great. I went down and was interviewed. At that time, there were a couple EG&G buildings by McCarran Airport out here
I recall
in Las Vegas.
Yes.
I really don't know what's there now. Someone tells me there's still one building, but there used to be two before they expanded the airport. One was special projects, and I don't know what the other one was. But in either case, I was told to go down there for an interview. The interview was relatively short, and I really don't remember specifically what the job entailed, but they told me I was basically overqualified and would become bored with it in a short time. I said, fine, but they said, we might have something else in the future for you. I said, fine, okay, and basically went back home.
Figuring they had blown you off.
Right. I really don't remember what the job was, but it didn't really even sound too exciting to me, so it really didn't ring my bell at that point.
Do you recall anything about a technician level or something that would have been boring?
I really don't. Remember this, when I go through most of this stuff, people are amazed. Boy, how come you can't remember these facts? This is a fantastic point in your life, and yeah, but it's also a decade old now, and it's hard to remember specifics here and there. However, as it turned out, they did call back and had another position. The position was stated to be something that was involving a field propulsion system, which to me, in my mind, sounded something along the lines of some electromagnetic propulsion, something that might be used in space, maybe, I don't know, an ion drive system using mercury vapor or something like that. Or
you've always been fascinated by propulsion systems.
Anything with, exerts tremendous amount of energy, from, explosives to, high energy weapons, anything along those lines, propulsion. And and coincidentally, the article that Dr. Teller was reading was about a car that I had converted to run on a jet engine.
Now, you see, I remembered that. And then you converted another one, I believe, to run on hydrogen, didn't you?
Yeah, actually, I'm really surprised that you remember that. I don't remember.
So
that is one of the number one things I get asked about.
I know. I have a good memory, Bob. For some,
I'm
for
envious
some
of that. But in either case, I after a more or less lengthy interview, I accepted the job, and of course I had to go back a second time.
Can you remember any of the details of this rather lengthy interview? I mean, was a lot of it security-oriented?
Well, there was certainly a lot of security-oriented questions and so forth later on. However, keep in mind that I had just come from Los Alamos just a couple of years before.
That's true.
Where I had Q clearance, civilian, top secret clearance.
Mm-hmm.
And they really didn't have to go and dig deep back into my past to see if I was, of Russian descent or anything along those lines. So basically, the job just seemed like a typical research and development job. I was anxious to get started on it, and things went on. All they told me is that it was in a remote area out in the desert, and that I would fly out there maybe once, possibly twice a week, just to kind of get caught up on stuff, and they had to reinstate my clearance, which would take, perhaps a couple weeks, maybe a month at the latest.
Sure.
And so in the meantime, I was given essentially busy work to do, or at least that's how it rang in my mind. And this is typical, too, at Los Alamos. If you're initially hired there before your clearance goes through, sometimes, obtaining Q clearance can take up to 13 months. So they don't just have you sit at home. You'll, before you go to work for the lab, sit around and work on alarm systems or something like that. Doesn't, something usually below your potential, but something to keep you busy. That
rings true. I was in the Air Force. They did that to us all the time.
Yeah, it's pretty common. So I thought, well, that's very typical. I had no idea what this would actually entail until I got into it, and obviously looking through their eyes, I guess it made sense that they couldn't, of course, divulge what this job would actually entail before they had, gone through all the security and whatnot. But, that's essentially how the job came about.
All right. One thing that I would think you would remember is your impressions of Mr. Teller.
I do, as far as what?
Well, what kind of guy was he? Just simple questions. What kind of guy was he?
He was, he seems to have two faces, which is strange. In talking to him one-on-one, he's a very polite, pleasant, intelligent man. However, virtually any interview you'll see of this guy, he comes across as the
one at Groom Lake. Bob's story is the main reason behind the state of Nevada changing the name of Nevada State Highway 375, the highway to Area 51 or S4, to its new name, the Extraterrestrial Highway. Indeed. Bob currently runs a company that manufactures and repairs alpha radiation detectors. All right, here we go. Bob Lazar is the ex-government scientist who, in 1989, came forward with the fact that he had been part of a team of scientists who back-engineered extraterrestrial disks, flying saucers, in other words, at a base known as S4, some 15 miles south of the infamous Area 50. He also creates CGI, computer-generated graphics and simulations, for technical and legal demonstration videos, for which he uses his mainframe supercomputer, which, by the way, is the second fastest computer in the state of Nevada, second only to the one at Nellis Air Force Base. Bob also has a small photo processing lab in his home. In his spare time, Bob does pyrotechnical and rocket research and throws Desert Blast, his annual fireworks blowout, at the Nevada desert. And if memory serves, he also fools around with alternative fuels for cars. He comes this morning with Gene Huff, Bob's longtime friend and business partner, who is the writer and co-producer of the Lazar tape. Gene is a real estate appraiser and screenwriter. His screenplay S4, the Bob Lazar story, has recently been optioned and was chosen over 3 other screenplays on the Lazar story, written by Writers Jim Cresson, I guess that's right, Cresson or Cresson, who wrote The Morning After with Jeff Bridges and Jane Fonda. Roy Carlson, who wrote China Moon with Ed Harris and Madeline Stowe.